Something that you kind of build up over years of making games and also playing games is kind of getting a feel for like, I don't know how to describe this. It's not really critical things for your game's development. It's things that your game could leave out, but it's these quality of life features. You know, you often hear this of like UX, user experience in game development, but it's something that's kind of hard to understand if you haven't put in all of the reps. And I think it was an interesting video, or like I thought it was going to be an interesting video to just walk through MMO98 and give you like a quick highlight of some of the things I could think about that we kind of played around with for this game, that all of these things we could have kind of ignored and would still have a functional game at the end of the day. But I think there are like the small details that do make the game better, more fun, however you want to call it. So I'm just going to run the game and I'm going to walk you through some of the thoughts and reasons behind it, for example, that we could have left out. And I think the first thing I want to start by is by something that you see literally here. I'm going to mute my music for a second because otherwise maybe it's going to be a little bit loud. And that is just purely your background. Something that I see, you know, this is like the point between, let's say you have like level 1 versus level 99 game developer. I think a level 5 game developer unlock is the ability to make better like backgrounds and wallpapers, or like, you know, main menus. This is a very simple background, but this could have also been just an image. This is what you see the most often. It's just like solid black color or solid something, whatever. Something you need to keep in mind is that this is the first experience that the player will have with your game. So you immediately kind of want to make it feel pretty good. And if it's just a single static color or a single static image, doesn't really always work as much. In our case, what we have instead of an image, the way this is actually just designed in general, is that our background is a material. So this is just Unity. Most of these things are not Unity specific, so like we can just play around with this. And then I was like, hey, why don't we just play around with like, I can configure how the clouds go, things like that. Very dumb stuff, once again, but we're going to get more into these things. This is the first thing that I kind of wanted to highlight of like, you need to have this, I would say. There's some other alternatives that you see. Another thing that you often see is like parallax effects. So for example, based on where your cursor is, the background would move in relationship with that, you know, like parallax. It's like, you know, you have like mountains in the distance. Or if you're having a game that is like 3D, like Kyoto Anomalies main menu, for example, I'll throw up some gameplay, having some movement there as well. And I think something that I also like to do is then, even if you like have a camera and then you have a 3D environment as your background, having like some sort of like camera sway almost, where it like very softly like moves around in a breathing pattern, once again makes the game feel more weighty, I think is the best way to describe it. You can go in a lot of ways, or you can have like looping textures and then have them like move around as well. Having some movement on your main menu screen is, I think, always a very good thing to have. That brings us to the second thing that I want to talk about, and that is having certain settings I think are mandatory. Like, okay, volume, have to have these, like master volume, and then for each channel, we have sound effects, we have music, and then we have ambient sound effects. All of 3 of those are standalone. And then the default is at 50% basically. You can control all of them. I think an interesting one that we added for the first time in this game is mute on focus loss. So I'm in the Unity editor right now, so it's not really obvious. Actually, I can. So this should be pretty loud. I hope it's not too loud. If I now click outside of my Unity, you hear that the music stops. Like, I'm not in my game. The moment I'm back on game, the music plays again. Whereas now I can click on Unity and it keeps playing. So this is kind of a small thing, but especially if you have a game that like runs in windowed mode as well, you may want to have it or you may not want to have it. Giving this as an option to your players is something that, once again, this takes like 5 minutes to implement, and I think it's a pretty nice quality of life thing to have. Some other things, you always need to have a way to choose your display mode. You always should have a way to limit your frame rates. I think those two are non-negotiables. You always want to be able to change like full screen, windowed, borderless. Having a frame rate limiter, especially for my Unreal bros, is, I think, a very important thing as well. And then we have like some other stuff like disable CRT effect. I think that if you're doing CRT effect, you should always have a way to turn it off. One of my favorite things, because we got feedback of like the game is too bright, is a brightness slider. What this does basically, I can't seem to find it exactly in my hierarchy. It's basically just changing the transparency of a black image that is on top of the entire game. It's a very simple, stupid fix, but it works and people are happy with it. If dark mode isn't an option, in our case, because Windows 98 didn't come with a dark mode. So with that out of the way, I want to talk about the first next thing that we did. And for that, we're going to have to go into one of our game saves. Like, this is the rest is going to be in-game. Buttons. So something that we add and that I suggest everyone to add to their game is, like in Unity, you have the concept of prefab. So we have a default button basically that we can use for everything. Is this script? I don't know if I can zoom in on it or not. Button click sound effect. Basically, this is just we select what is the sound effect for our button going to be. And then the important thing that I want developers to do, including you, is to have some sort of pitch randomization. This is such a simple thing to do. I don't even know. This is going to be a tiny script, I think. Like you can see, this script is absolutely miserable basically here. It just plays within a random range of the maximum and the minimum pitch. Yet this allows you, especially in a game where you have to click a lot of buttons, I can click the same button like 10 times in a row very quickly, and it will never sound the exact same. There is an extra layer you can do here where you can also have this plus a pool of like 3 click sound effects, for example, that you randomly choose between eyes also. You don't need to do the pool, I would say, but I think especially the randomization is such an easy thing to do. Add it to your game, because especially for, like I said, incremental games, which is what a lot of our audience is making right now, always hearing the exact same sound. It doesn't even need to be clicks. Clicks is just something you hear often here. It could be things like gunshots or other sound effects that are just very, very prominent. Putting them on like some light randomization will help a lot in drowning out or like making it not as monotonous to listen to the entire time. Something else then that we did, this is it's not shown anywhere, but it is something that people will go for. And it is, for example, I'm going to show you my keyboard. We are right now, we don't have anything selected. Right now we are on the dashboard. So if I click 1 on my keyboard, I can disable the dashboard. 2 is my upgrades, 3 is the debugger, 4 is the world, 5 is not unlocked right now, 6 is going to be SQL, and 7 is research. Same thing goes with, for example, like this is more often done. Like if I press escape now, I can open and close the menu. Escape is kind of a common one. We also added spacebar for play and pause implementation. So you can see that at my cursor right now. Having these kinds of, how do you call these, like secondary interactions is, I think, something very nice to have. We do not have like keyboard rebinding because most of our game is cursor bound at the end of the day. But still having the option to make it easy to navigate in between certain fields is, I think, something you should consider at certain points of like, hey, this isn't too much work. Let me go and add this in as well. I think it's pretty cool to have done that. And then going back to clickers, something else that we ran into with this game is that, okay, it's an incremental game. It's a clicker game. So you can see here, we have to click a lot. I'm actually going to change my music again, just so you can hear the sound effect maybe a little bit more clearly. So this actually has a unique sound effect that is a little bit different from the standard button click. But as you can see, I had to click quite a lot of times. And it can get fatiguing. I don't have like boomer hands yet, but things like RSI, repetitive strain injury, are genuine concerns sometimes for like incremental games especially. So something that we added then, once again, I'm going to just like take my mouse, if I can get it working, is like add an auto clicker. It's a little bit slower than if I like manually spam click, but I don't have to like immediately keep going crazy with my fingers, basically. Once again, these are scripts that are very easy to make in any engine, basically. But it's like asking yourself, like, okay, this is like a kind of small pain point, but it takes me as a developer less than 5 minutes to fix this. So let's just do that. Let's just grind that little bit of XP so we get to the level 40 developer from level 39 or whatever. I think these are perfect examples of that, basically, that once again, I just wanted to highlight with you guys. And then something else that I think is really cool, but for this, we're going to have to restart the game, is this here. Our statistics, we have numbers. And there's a problem with numbers. We actually ran into this problem once with one of our YouTube videos, where we once made this video, creating a $100,000 studio. To me, this looks weird. I'm from Belgium. We do not use a comma as a like separator for long numbers. We use dots, whereas US viewers, like you guys, you use comma as the separator and dot as the decimal. And I can't make a thumbnail specifically to one specific country. That's unfortunately not an option, but that same problem is here as well. So right now, as you can see, we're using the American standard of commas for the whole numbers and then dot for the half numbers. So yeah, like here 2.0 TB bytes. This is something that people, I feel like, often hard code or just don't deal with at all. We have a thing you can do. I think this may also be done automatically. If not, check it. If we go to our application here, this is a little script I added, locale override, where if you use number formatting from, like in this case, C#, maybe other languages support as well, you can tie in. This is kind of like localization with like language. This is locale. This is different. This is like what is configured in Windows as well. We can be like, okay, I'm going to emulate being a German person now. So now supposedly I overwrite my own Windows locale. So now I'm going to start in German, and you're going to see that the numbers, the way it displays, has changed without me having had to change like the actual localization formatting at all. So if we go back to our save file, so here we can see like, okay, we're using the dots as a separator now, which is the German style basically. And you can go deeper in it. This is like just a numeric format. I think actually I can show you. This is something specific that we did. This editor is using Odin, the Unity extension. So here, for example, if you have a percentage, we can say that it's a numeric format with 2 digits of like precision. This is C# stuff. This is not like Unity specific. I assume other programming languages also have support for this because it's pretty supported. Here you can see this was what it used to be. So like integer 6 and integer 9. We do not use these approaches anymore, where we used to manually specify always use commas. But that would mean that for a German person, our game would look weird. Something else that we did, because we wanted to have leading zeros, we decided to have these leading zeros. These leading zeros are, I think, a part of our UI, but then you can also just play around with like, hey, every leading zero, let's make it 50% opacity compared to the rest. So it's still, you can see that there's more. We didn't want to completely hide the leading zeros because this kind of shows like, oh, if the developers provided this much space and this much leading zeros, that means my numbers will go up to this certain level as well. That's why we wanted to keep it so that people had the idea of like, oh, I'm actually going to get millions of players for my game in like the later stages. But it also was kind of confusing of like, okay, but what's my actual number? So we were like, hey, let's make this 50% opaque instead. And then a final very silly thing that I still wanted to show you. I wasn't sure if I should include this into the video or not, but I was like, fuck it. This is kind of what happens when we had like a little bit of time left before the game came out. And this is our windowed mode for MMO98. So this is actual build. This is not in Unity. Can you tell me what you like notice is different here? This is something that, once again, business value delivered, absolutely zero. But I think part of game development is also just having fun. For those who are unaware, we basically overwrote. We used like Windows API calls, which is something you can find documentation on. Your favorite LLM knows perfectly how to do this as well. To disable the default Windows header. So I don't know if I can like show you that easily. And then overwrite that with this MMO98 one, which is just, you know, it's a Windows XP style header. It's something that, once again, will people notice? Maybe they will. A lot of people also never play this game outside of borderless window mode or full screen mode, and they will not notice. And even then, this doesn't really add anything to the actual gameplay experience. But I think, and maybe this is scope, maybe not, I think what is important is that this elevates your own level. This elevates your own bar of you as a game developer. Are you good or not? Maybe I sound like I'm glazing myself now. I think I generally have gotten better over the past few years as a game developer because I would have never considered doing stuff like this years ago. Now, does that mean that the moment you start your game, you should start working on these small, dumb things? No, but I think having a list of like small, fun, dumb stuff to work on during your game's development, maybe if you don't want to work on like some big, boring mechanic, I think is a very good motivation booster because yeah, business value is zero, but goddammit, I have been smiling every time that I run this game, basically, because it's just such a dumb but fun thing that you can add. And then, you know, there's like, is it still wonky? Like you can see the text moves a little bit still. It's like, yeah, but it's close enough in this case. I like it. So I just wanted to show that. So those are like 7 small changes, I guess, upgrades with it to MMO98. I don't know if there's like other small stuff like game feel, game weight, and things like that that I missed. If you have a favorite, like a little UX hack that is not like one of the standard things like, oh, if you hover over a button, make it wiggle or whatever, then please be sure to head down below and leave as a comment, because I think this is how we get better as game developers. I want to know if there's other stuff that I missed that I maybe want to use in our future games. So I hope this was an interesting video. I'm going to go back to development now, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.